Hey everyone, I have us at the top of the hour, we're a small but mighty group here at the moment. And I will again share my encouragement to turn on video if you're able and willing. The idea is to have as much of a around the table feel as we can get. So I will give it a few more minutes to let people join. The Mitoko dance is sometimes a little more involved than people remember. I do want to say something. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Okay, cool. I just wanted to see how that worked. And the answer is not really well. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. I do want to try something. Okay. Here. Pass slide control. Okay. Sorry, Debbie. You will have to stop that. Interesting. Okay. Take back slide control. Interesting. I can't seem to take back slide control. Huh.
Do you need me to stop slide share you must have done?
Yeah, stop slide share, please. I'm doing a little test before I get into training. The slide share controls have changed slightly, so I wanted to see what they look like. Yeah, thank you very much, Debbie. We'll wait one more minute, and then we'll get going. Could be a pretty focused conversation today. Oh, Andrew. Hey, Jay. Hey, Andrew. Good to see you both online. I'm going to say again that for anybody who's here, feel free to please share video if you're able. We're trying to make this as much of a around the table kind of conversation as we can. Yeah, and so that's great. If not, we will get going here in about a minute. I see Debbie coming back. Cindy, can I ask you, are you able to see the link that I posted just at the top of the hour into the chat? Can't recall.
Hi, everyone. Here's the link to the notes for today's conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. Super. Okay. Well, we're 3 minutes after the hour, and thanks to whomever is putting names into the participant list. I think we'll get started. I have just recently updated the note with the agenda for today, proposed agenda for today. So if you took a look at it before, it's changed quite a bit. So I'll give you a moment to take a look at it again now. And I see Laura is joining, so that's great. I'll say it the last time I'll say it. Go ahead and turn on video if you can. If you can't, that's also fine. But feel free to jump in. We're really small. So yeah, so I'll just get going. And I think as a reminder, since this is the third time we've done this, and I think everything takes threes in the IETF to actually get ingrained. Cindy's nodding, so I've learned that lesson well. I'll just remind folks that the goal of this call is to provide some visibility and perhaps get a little input about the various comms activities that the LLC undertakes on behalf of the IETF and IB and IRTF and so forth. And it's really modeled on the tools team call. Those calls are run by Robert Sparks, and I think during those calls, most of the time Robert does most of the talking, so that's not surprising, but I do encourage folks to ask questions and make suggestions along the way. And I'm just vamping here until we get to the agenda bash section. The agenda is set up as stuff that I think we might want to talk about and discuss. I'd be looking forward to input on, and then a lot of FYIs. And what I will do is I'll read through the note that has the agenda, and then yeah, we can talk about anything else that comes up as well. So again, small, focused, casual conversation. And with that, I'll pause. Does anybody want to add anything to the agenda? Anything maybe that they just want to be sure to touch on that isn't already listed, or stuff that's in the FYI section that they'd like to actually discuss? Okay. Oh, hi, Mira is joining. Great, excellent. I'll just, Miria, I just want to welcome you. We just did the first part of the agenda review and semi-bash, so if you are able to hear me and can just let me know whether or not you want to add anything, either video or voice or both, or just drop something in the chat. Okay, feel free to jump in. Great. So thanks everybody for making time for this. I find them very helpful, these calls very helpful to help organize things. And also, again, hopefully to get a little bit of input. We had a really good discussion last week, or last month, I guess it is. So maybe we'll continue some of that here. I am trying to manage a few windows here. Okay, I'm back. So there are 3 items that I definitely want to be sure that we focus on a little bit and maybe get some input on. First, the www.IETF.org website has been going a lot of behind-the-scenes changes. And by this, I am including the very expansive version of www.IETF.org. So there's been a lot of work on the tools team side to sort of reorganize things and make them more sustainable, because a lot of the artifacts that, for example, Data Tracker has been pointing to had lived in on the www.IETF.org site. So that's changed up a little bit. But here, I specifically want to talk about the Wagtail CMS part of www.IETF.org, which is actually just a subset. And as folks know, we've been using Wagtail now for 7 years in the IETF, which seems impossible, but it's true. And we've been making some incremental updates along the way. What's coming down the road, though, is a pretty significant change. We mentioned this last time, but for example, one of the changes that's going to happen is the menu structure is going to be entirely refactored. I put an example from the now newly launched RIPE website to give you an idea of what the www site will look like going forward. And the idea here is to provide better access to more information more easily. Previously, things on navigation have been structured very much along page hierarchy, and so this allows things to be a little bit more organized at a glance, and also to provide links to stuff that doesn't fall within the page hierarchy within a menu. So the RIPE example is a pretty good example about what we're going to be looking for. And this will be, or it has been scheduled for just after 119, but it may slide a little bit depending on the IT infrastructure work. So there are 2 things here that I want to make sure to flag. First of all, this will be it's not a breaking change, because we'll still make sure that URL continuity remains for important URLs, but it is going to be a significant change in terms of the user experience. I think for the better, big step for the better. But also, so that's one. But also the other point is that I think that this will be the start of more regular updates to what www.itf.org looks like. So yeah, so I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions or comments. I know Rich and Muriel, you both joined. I said it was going to be the last time, but I'll say again, turn on video if you can. That'd be great. If not, I'll look for comments in the chat or just jump in by voice.
Yeah, at least I can say I really like the mock-up of the new navigation.
Okay, thanks, Miriam. Okay, well, great. I didn't mention, but I should say, if you haven't taken a look at the new IAB website, you should definitely go take a look. That's now also on Wagtail, and Cindy and Miria have put a lot of work into that, and I think it looks great. So another big step forward.
Just sorry, I'm very slow on catching up here and chatting with somebody on the site, so it's complicated. It says the update has been set for just after 119, of course. Are we planning to kind of already announce this at 119 or whatever?
I wasn't planning to announce it at 119. We might share it a little bit, yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in views, but my thought that this is just a part of the regular ongoing maintenance, so it's not going to change like the overall look and feel. Things will still that worked before will still continue to work. So yeah, wasn't going to be a big announcement.
No, I was just thinking of something like, there's a change, be prepared or whatever. But yeah, it should be easier to navigate, so it should be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Welcome, Andrew. Good to see you.
Sorry, I was listening, but I was on a different device momentarily. So just while I'm talking, I would suggest you might want to say something.
Sorry, Andrew, I lost your audio. Looks like you're. Okay. Happy to come back, Andrew. Sorry about the audio problem. Just feel free to jump in if. Okay, great. Okay, we'll come back. Okay, great. Thanks for that. The second item on the hot topics for discussion list is meeting communications planning. Also mentioned this earlier in or at the previous meeting, but we are going to start moving towards a more 1 year out approach to meeting communications, and by communications I mean like promoting to local communities usually, or mostly. So we're going to start to operationalize that with 120 and with IETF 121 in Dublin in particular. We've been doing, you'll see down later in the FYIs, we've been doing a lot of different kinds of things for 119, in part to generate interest and awareness that we're having a meeting in a region or in a location geography that we don't usually have a meeting. And so we'll be taking some of the experience that we've been doing, those new things that we've been doing, and folding them into the activities that we do around upcoming meetings. So I'm pretty excited about this. It's going to imply a different way of thinking, I think, for a lot of us, and it may result in, for example, the community, IETF community, and also the broader world seen things about meetings further in advance than they have been used to. But overall, I think it's going to be a net positive because it'll be a better way of getting awareness about IETF.
Just a question on the current state. So I thought for a while we did reach out at least to like local universities. Did we stop that at some point, or did we still do this?
No, we definitely still do it. The big change here is that we have been doing this. We have been operating very much on a. I mean, not the behind the scenes stuff that Laura does. Has obviously has years out, like getting securing venues and things like that. It's like 3 years out. But the real big change here is that when it comes to promoting the meetings, we haven't really been doing it any further in advance than as soon as the previous meeting ended. So when 118 ended, then we started thinking about 119. I mean, we would think about it, but not really do anything about it. And here are the changes that we're actually going to start doing stuff for Dublin, hopefully next month, or I guess in April, since we're in a leap year.
So it's both. It's not. It's like it's doing it earlier and doing more. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
I think
yeah.
that's just mention what's probably obvious given your other hat. When we talk, when we promote it locally, we should also make sure that we say, hey, and there's going to be, newcomers events and tutorials so that if this is your first exposure, don't worry, we'll guide you through it or whatever. But yeah.
That's a really good point. It's definitely something that we've talked about with, for example, Michelle, surfaced with other folks on EODR. But it may suggest some different kinds of things for new participant activities to provide sort of a longer, more gradual on-ramp. Haven't worked that out yet, but that's definitely something to think about. Good point. Andrew, you're in the queue. Fantastic. Please go ahead.
Do I have audio this time?
You do.
Oh, fantastic. Right. No idea what didn't work last time, but anyway, all I was trying to say last time, without going back too much in the agenda, I think it would be a good idea to talk about the changes to the website at 119, knowing that the community is very conservative and surprises maybe don't go down so well. But on the current topic, which I think is an excellent idea to give more communication much earlier about things, as just a random thought, for example, for Dublin, what would you think about maybe trying to do some sort of Dublin-based networking option for potential new participants a month or so beforehand, to just for would-be newcomers, so that rather than just the usual online stuff, how about doing something in person, a very lightweight thing in person? I'm not talking about anything major, but literally maybe a get-together one evening, that sort of thing, which is possibly a topic for EODR overall, but from a comms point of view, do you think that would be worth thinking about, Greg, putting you on the spot?
Always worth thinking about, Andrew. Always worth thinking about. But it definitely would be something, as you say, something to coordinate through EODR. And so it's a good idea. I've captured in the notes. Thank you.
Sounds dangerously like an interesting idea.
I'm just making sure. Okay, cool. I've got it added to the notes. Thank you for that. Oh, okay, sorry. In person was a key point of that. Yeah. Excellent. So great. The third item that I just wanted to flag for discussion possibly is that, and again, this is something that appeared on the meeting agenda, this call's previous agendas, is that we were really starting to ramp up work on collateral to support, and by ramp up, I just mean actually getting it started this year. I don't think we're going to be doing a lot more collateral or different kinds of, what I mean is like a whole bunch of different kinds of collateral that we haven't already done. But it is starting up this year, and I'd be happy to share sort of a general, here's what we've been doing. I don't have one ready right now. But I wanted to see if that would be useful. And just to give you an idea, so for example, at the moment we have the regular things that we do, sort of a 2023 snapshot, or a snapshot of the previous year's high-level activities in the IETF, which we usually have ready for during the first meeting of the year, which we will have for 119. We do an annual report, sort of more mid-year, which now that Debbie's on board, has always sort of been gated on when the financials are ready, and now Debbie has everything running like a well-oiled machine there. So we will probably be ahead of schedule based on that, compared to previous years. And then we do sort of one pagers for various communities or fundraising or sponsorship opportunities. And then lastly, the other big bucket I would say is sort of online digital materials that we maintain for people who are doing outreach. I don't see Drew here, but for example, Drew for the IAB, as IAB outreach coordinator, tracks various presentations by IETF leadership, and so we maintain a starting point overview deck, so that those folks can have something to start with. So, okay, I see Jay's notes. I will take that. Anyway, I guess the questions here are there any big items, like buckets of collateral or content, that you think we should consider that aren't covered by what I just described? Would it be useful to have a running list of things that people could keep track of? We do make things available, I should have mentioned, publicly on our digital asset management system. What could we do to be more useful? Or
yeah, I have to say I still have problems finding the material when I need it. Like just a simple presentation, I always have problems to find it.
Okay.
I guess I'm not sure what the solution is. Maybe just putting pointers in multiple places, so you always end up at the right thing. I don't know.
Well, let me conduct a focus group of one with you, Miria. Where would you naturally look first?
So for the slides, I usually look somewhere in my own Google Drive, thinking that I would have accessed the slides already sometime and they should show up, but they don't always. So. But like for a Google Drive, actually, we do have now drives for the IB and the IHG, so it's easier when we create documents that everybody automatically get access. So we could also probably create like a general leadership drive or something. I don't know. Maybe we actually create a website which has a pointer to all the materials somewhere. I don't know, or another wiki page, or I don't know, or somewhere put it in different places in the wiki.
Okay, good ideas.
And the other thing I was looking for was actually in the GitHub. I was checking the GitHub. Do we have a GitHub for comms related stuff? No.
We don't. Should we?
I don't know. That was like you were asking me where I was looking.
Yeah. It's good to consider. More and more.
I've been looking at this repo where all the badges are and stuff, right? But that's yet another repo, I guess. So I couldn't find the right one.
Okay. Take your point. And I am super happy to put pointers as many places as possible, as long as we only have one source.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Good ideas. Andrew was shaking his head.
If you could actually create just a document with all the things that we have, then I could also look at it and figure out where I would usually look for them. Because I don't know what we have.
Okay, that's actually probably Well, that's definitely an easy. So, okay, good feedback. Thank you.
Well, one thing which I found incredibly useful, and I put a comment in the chat, but it is actually collateral thinking about it. There was a post on social media which you click through and it talked through some of the, a random selection almost of things on the agenda for 119, which from an entirely selfish point of view, I do sort of run a briefing session for people to tell them what good things are on the agenda for the next meeting and why they should attend, either in person or remotely. So entirely selfishly, having something like that available is really handy because I can sort of plagiarize it and then add my own stuff on top. So might be a use case of one, but yeah, please do more of that. That's really good.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your honesty, but and I'm glad you find it useful. It's definitely there for people to use. So thank you for taking advantage of it. And I should say it should be clear by the preface, the chapeau for that post, that these are intended to be sessions where people could come in and find out about stuff without having to have a huge amount of background. So if that's not clear, please let me know. And the second thing I wanted to say about that is that those are largely built because of through input from leadership, so ISG members and such, so and Miria as well, and IAB members. But yeah, so it depends on those. So that positive feedback is also good to encourage continued participation by those folks.
Well, to be honest, Greg, for people that perhaps aren't convinced it's worth their time, by the time the agendas of the working group sessions are available, it's far too late for people to make a decision because that's like a week before the meeting, if you're lucky. So having something like that, which gives you a meaningful sense of what's on the agenda rather than just some headings of stuff that looks really weird if you've not engaged with the ITF previously, that's much more useful and consumable to someone to get their head around, why they should invest their time to come.
Great, thanks. Jay, please.
Thanks. I just want to say, I think we should probably work on the expectation that people will plagiarize this. The whole purpose is that it gets a message out about all of these things that are going on. And so for people to take it and put it into something for their own communities, their own, organization, their own customers, whatever, that's great. It's that's exactly what it's intended for.
Yeah, I would make that a public statement, put it in the tagline or at the bottom of the thing saying, feel free to forward this information as appropriate to your organization or whatever.
Yeah, great. Good points. I've added those to the notes as well. But I also heard the point about, I don't know if there's anything to be done, but I too found it difficult to understand that most sessions didn't have agendas posted further in advance. But I think that's just part of how the IETF works at this point. So fantastic. Those are the three topics that I for sure wanted to cover. There is Jay added an agenda item about allowing downloads on the IETF YouTube channel. Did you want to talk about that now?
So with the increasing prevalence of AI, we've just had a request from somebody to run their own transcription routines through things or test out transcription on our videos. Our videos currently don't allow downloads. So I thought I'd add that on to see if I don't know if there's a reason if they don't, or if there are any objections to doing that and what people think about that.
Yeah, just as a detail, this is specifically for I think this request is specifically for an interim meeting, but so we don't allow downloads right now on the YouTube channel. I was trying to see if that's something that you can, if you can download a Metaco version of the meeting recording. I don't know if that's possible, but it is a good general question.
I think it is theoretically possible because I believe they have them, but we don't have the everything set up around that. So there's quite a bit to go around that. So that's why if it can be done through YouTube, that would be easier. But is there a concern about allowing downloads on the YouTube channel?
Are you asking just the group there, Jay?
Yeah, well, I see Miriam shaking her head, so no concern there. No, Rich doesn't know. Right? Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could ask the trust if they know why. My guess is by default it wasn't allowed and nobody ever thought to question it.
Yeah. Okay.
Answering a slightly different question, is there a reason why we can't enable transcripts anyway on whatever content that goes onto YouTube? Plenty of tools that will do that automatically anyway.
Yeah, there is the ability to do closed captioning automatically on YouTube, so that's possible. And the request for the download is because there is a different tool that wanted to be used that required ingestion of the video. Yeah.
I've never personally looked at the captioning side of things. Alex is on the call though. Oh no, sorry, just in Zulu, not on the call. So I believe that captioning is uploaded though by Metaco, but transcripts aren't yet.
In YouTube, what happens is that the YouTube itself generates the transcripts. Sorry, the captioning. But the trick there might be also that those captions aren't available for download by viewers. Like the owner of the content can, but the viewers can't get the captions. So, but what I hear here is that there's no concerns about making the videos themselves available, if that's possible on YouTube, and if there's a way to enable access directly to the YouTube generated captions, that would also be a good thing. Okay. Yeah, well, Andrew, you're an insider to mention that we should check with the trust. I think though that the the licensing on the videos, that's also good catch. I don't think it's an issue, but we'll check.
Yeah, I'm not sure we need to change the check with the trust because we're not changing the licensing, so
right.
We're not doing anything.
Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you, Jay, for the item and for folks for their thoughts. I've added it to the note. Okay, with that, I'm going to just run through the FYIs in case something pops out that people actually do want to talk about. But I'll do it quickly because I'll take them as read. And then I have a question at the end just to keep you in suspense. So as I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of different things for 119, and that has actually been quite useful to explore, and we're going to take those learnings and build them into the plans for upcoming meetings as well. But I think we've been doing more different things for 119, and so that's an approach that will continue. The visual style guide that we have mentioned before is now available to anybody through the public, and this in particular allows us to use in a regular harmonized way more colors, yay, more colors, and also sort of builds out our approach to how we deal with the IETF logo in terms like the IETF trust and so forth. So it's goodness. It's still not the 120-page brand book you would get if you were working at someplace like Cisco, but it's definitely a little bit more helpful to the designers and other people that are working on IETF stuff. We talked a little bit about YouTube, and again, this was mentioned. Everything's in place at a previous meeting. Everything's in place to allow things like the full meeting session name to be added to the YouTube descriptions, video descriptions that are uploaded, and that's going to help people find them because they can search rather than having to know whatever the IETF acronym is for a particular working group. And then lastly, the DAO looks like it's going to be, unless something weird happens, is going to be officially retired at the next IESG telechat, which is next week. Yeah, so that's also been previously mentioned, has moved along. I think that's pretty much it for things to talk about. Anything else, or that I had anyway? Anything else folks want to talk about?
Sorry, I think you went too quickly. Did you say anything about the blog posts?
Oh, you're right. I did go too quickly. I missed two whole things. My scrolling. So first of all, meeting photography, again, for 119, we're going to have 3 or 4 days of coverage from a local photographer. Yeah, this is just more cost effective for us. And on the blog, I will say we continue to get, again, I mentioned this before, but we continue to get interest from folks who are doing technical work, which I think is fantastic. And so like the longest lead time blog post ever was published last week, where JSON path RFC was published 17 years, I think, to the day after the initial idea was posed on a person's blog. So go read that post. It's fantastic. I have a few other things in the pipeline that people are offering. Always welcome for ideas. Miria, did you want to suggest something specific?
Yeah, I wanted to ask some things. First of all, do we now have any statistics about how these posts are read and used?
Yes, we do have statistics about how many, my usual disclaimer about web stats having to be taken with a grain of salt. They're usually understood as, best understood as relative for a variety of reasons, technical reasons. But we do, and we've been sharing, when a post like this is published, we've been sharing the stats with the authors sort of a week afterwards to let them know that. So for example, the latest one was on media over quick. Again, a really nice in-depth look at work that's going on in the IETF, and we shared stats for that specific post with the author. We have guidelines about how we can use our web analytics. So in general, so we try to follow those, but the specific stats for the blog post we share with the author.
So, I mean, what do the stats tell us? Is it usually that people kind of read it shortly after it came out, and like how many readers do we have? Is it over a longer time? Is this the same for all technical posts, or are there some specific ones which are very popular?
Yes, excellent questions. I think we don't have enough data points to have a sort of a general trend, other than when things are posted and shared on social media initially, then there's a spike. But we don't have long-term stats for these because we just don't retain that information long enough from an analytics point of view. But you didn't ask this question, but I will tell you, one of the most amazing things to me is that the technology deep dives on our YouTube channel are consistently the highest viewed videos on our channel by a long shot. Like the technology deep dive on DNS, which was 5 years ago or something like that, was by like ×3 the most viewed video in the last month. So there's definitely interest in, my takeaway is that there's definitely interest in technology focused content, and deep dives are longer form are kind of where the IETF hits its sweet spot, because that's where it has expertise, and that kind of content isn't covered elsewhere.
Any thoughts on pushing out a monthly post to social media with our sort of top 10 things of the month or something?
in case you missed it kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good idea.
So, I mean,
Taking
this
it down.
touches a little bit on my other question I actually have, which is, I know, a complicated one, but I think you say you're happy that you now have more people writing blogs, but effectively it's a little bit random what we get, right? It depends on like somebody just happened to write something, and so what could happen is that like the blog post might be nicely written and whatever, but it doesn't actually promote the important stuff we're doing, right? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't publish the other blog posts, but I think we need a strategy to also make sure we publish stuff about the important stuff we're doing, about the ones that has like a huge amount of interest and impact. And I know this kind of planning is hard because you always need authors, and that means running after people, and you also need somebody to help you to tell what the important stuff is. But I think it is important to somehow find a strategy for that.
Well, I appreciate that thought. That's definitely yes. So we currently model the IETF's mode of incoming work in our blog, which is basically people come to the blog and offer to do the work. But your point about needing to move to a more proactive approach is definitely yeah, I take that on. One of the things that I think I mentioned in the collateral planning and production, and I didn't talk about, is trying to find a resource that is kind of a partner resource that understands the IETF well enough to be able to easily produce the kind of content that you're suggesting, Miriam. Yeah, so yeah, take that on.
I mean, I'm afraid you need like really an IETF insider to have a certain overview, but yeah. But there are a couple of very experienced people in the IETF, so.
Yeah, there are a few folks that know the IETF well enough to be able to write about it sensibly or content it sensibly, but it's a pretty small group at the moment. Yeah.
As a tongue-in-cheek suggestion, I'll refer you to very modestly to my weekly blog post on DNS-related stuff. If you're struggling to sleep one night, that'd be a good thing to look at.
So, but I mean, actually, that is also an interesting point. We have a couple of people in the IETF, like also Ecker is writing a really good blog, and I think Mark has a blog, Mark Nottingham and so on. So we have a couple of people who blog regularly, so we could also try to get in touch with them more.
Yeah, and another just brainstorming on this. The other thought is there are folks like Jeff Houston who publish on the APNIC blog quite in depth. So there might be opportunities to leverage republication of content. As an example of that, the Media Over Quick blog post was republished on the APNIC blog. So this is another general theme that we've taken away from 119, is to more closely partner with organizations that are super active in the region where the upcoming IETF meeting will be. Like, for example, RIPE for, I guess it's RIPE for Dublin, right? Yeah. So establishing those relationships earlier on will help.
Yeah. Did I actually ever catch up with you at the last RIPE meeting where I was early last year sometime? I did talk to Miriam about how we can make sure that like information from RIPE and IETF flows in both directions. People know what they need to know. And one simple idea was actually to kind of publish blog posts on both of the blogs, because they also have a very active blog. So I don't know if I ever reached back to you or if you ever got in touch with Miriam on that.
Yeah, I did talk to, I forget who is the blog manager for that, for RIPE, but yeah.
Okay. And for example, they were also willing to, for example, announce relevant posts on the RIPE list and these kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm just capturing that in the notes. Thank you.
Is it Alan Davis for RIPE? The RIPE blog, I think.
Sorry?
Is it Alan Davis does the RIPE blog, I think?
I don't know. I will.
I
look
don't
into
even
it.
know. I just talked to Miriam. So, And then I just wanted to check. So we do try to blog, for example, about all the IAB workshops or other IAB activities. Do those posts have been kind of successful, whatever that means, or useful?
Yeah, I don't know offhand. I can look at that and yeah. But yeah. Okay. I'll take that as an idea. And Miri, I know you've been asking this question for a while now, so hopefully we'll get you some information that or make it easier to to answer the question before you have to ask it. But the general point is let people who are contributing content to the blog know what kind of response they're getting. Is what I take. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like for example, workshop, we actually try to run this into our process. Like every time we do a workshop, we hopefully also will write a blog post. But like the IAB resources are also limited, so if that's not useful, then we should reconsider it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not about, I mean, this is, for that you have to look at multiple workshops, right? It doesn't make sense to just look at one post.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, as a side note, this is part of the siren call of social media, is that it's very easy to get. So collect a lot of data. This is really good. Thank you very much for the discussion and ideas. Is there anything else people want to talk about?
Just out of curiosity about the Tau retirement, do we already have all the content that we need on the webpage, or is there still something to left?
I think with this update, we will have all the content covered in the DAO. And I should say one other requirement of that document is that there continue to be a well-known, easy to get to place where people can find pointers to all the different content that is now more aligned with how the structure of the website is and sort of broken up. So that's something that we do need to establish as a new participant page. There's a getting started page for now, for example, that might end up being it, but we just need to establish that and make sure people know that when they say to their new colleague or whatever, go read Getting Started at IETF, and it'd be easy to find and people to get to, and we have SEO set up so that people can find it on their favorite search engine and such. Yeah.
Because that was my related question. Do we again have any kind of click statistics about which pages are used, like how much the DAO page was still used and these kind of things, to understand if it's now actually easier for people to find the content they need? Or
we do. I looked at that. The new introduction to the IETF page is very highly ranked, much more visited according to the analytics than the DAO pages. And a very high level observation is that no surprise, the top pages are generally the home page. Second in line is usually whatever the upcoming meeting page is, 119 page. And the third in line is the page about RFCs on the IETF website.
That's surprising.
Right. It is unless you think about it, maybe, because then like people are looking for information they hear about IETF and RFCs and they plug that into the search engine, and that's where they go. Oh, fantastic! Thank you, Apple. But the point is that we should leverage that. If these are really people who are trying to find out about RFCs, then we should figure out what goes on that page to help them get beyond just whatever is about RFCs. So that's something that we're looking at the update as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the Tau is actually kind of very hard to find. The only way I would find the Tau at the moment is using Google, right? So while this introduction to the IETF page is actually kind of the first thing you see there. Also, like, just selfishly, like I find it always hard to, if I look for specific information about past meetings, like attendee lists, or also kind of sometimes I just need to look up what was the hotel we were in or whatever. This kind of information that is currently at the current page for the meeting, easy to find. For past meetings, you can, like, it's kind of impossible to find them. And I know other organizations actually put up separate domains for each of the meetings, right? You could have like IETF119.IETF.org or whatever. So maybe this is something to consider.
Yeah, I will take that as a note to consider. I do think that the current approach is to capture as much information as possible in the proceedings pages. Yeah, so.
I do find that as well, by the way, just to echo Mira's point, that if I need to look back for something from a previous meeting, stuff that's really easy to find for the current meeting is surprisingly more difficult to find from a previous meeting.
Yeah, also the proceedings provide me the actual proceedings, but for example, if I need to look up an old agenda again and just want to know when was this meeting scheduled, like which day was this meeting, and like this is all information that is suddenly gone when the meeting is over, even so we like it's just this feeling that I'm not sure why we throw away the information that we already have. Kind of. I mean, proceedings are still good because they provide you the same information in a different way, but yeah, it's not fully the same. It's not a full replacement. So.
Okay. I will. I'm going to add that as an item under open discussion.
You might be talking to the only two people that go back to past meeting details in that way.
I think that it's kind of use case. It's a general decision if you want to do it or not, but I think it's something to consider at least. Yeah.
Okay. We're getting to the top of the hour, and we have an hour scheduled for this call. So I don't want to cut off conversation, but I do want to ask a question. Actually, I do want to cut off conversation. I lied, because I want to answer. I want to ask a question and have time to answer it. So the basic pattern for these calls are monthly, and the first I have two-part question, and I'll ask them both so you can have some time to think about them. The first part of it is, this is the third. I don't know what that is. Sorry about that. Are you seeing the thumbs up bit? Yeah, okay. Do folks find this general approach, including how the meeting is structured and the general periodicity of the meeting, is that useful? Think about that. The second part of the question is, for months in which there's a scheduled IETF meeting, we have talked about having something in person during the IETF meeting week for those who are in person, and online, obviously, for folks who are not at the meeting venue in person. I personally, and I know everybody else on this call has, I have a lot of things scheduled during the meeting week, and so I'm happy to do things that are useful, but I'm also happy to forego things that are of marginal utility. So I would be interested in people's thoughts about, would something like every month that there isn't an IETF meeting, hold these online interims? Should we definitely try to get together during IETF? Is the general structure okay? What are people's reactions? And jump in.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of 9 meetings a year, skipping the 3 the IETF meets. I think these are worthwhile and useful. I find it interesting, and appreciate the chance to make some suggestions. So I hope you
find it useful because I mean, just because of my position, I talk a lot about comms stuff to you, Greg, and so this provides a more structured way to talk about it. But I think the important part is also if this is useful for you, if it actually provides you the right input. And this is also the question about having an in-person meeting. I wouldn't need one, but I think you will get a different kind of input and different people in the room if you really want that. So.
Yeah, I mean, one possibility is you could maybe do, an IETF comms office hours, and see who shows up. And to emphasize Andrew's point, who will bitch about the new redesign.
I mean, I think that's actually not a bad idea. For example, people have a lot of questions about how do I get a badge from my working group and these kind of things. So in that sense, office hours might make sense.
Okay.
Same feedback, really, in terms of, are you getting value from doing this, Greg, and colleagues as well? Because if appreciate it's a burden, to take out an hour each month, but also, I was sort of thinking it through. Although it might seem intuitive to not do it during the IETF month, on the other hand, if you want to communicate with the community, dare I say it, offering an in-person slot, you probably would get more takers, just because they're there anyway. Well, if you like. Now, whether you would find that useful and constructive, who knows? But
Debbie or Cindy? Thank you, Andrew. Debbie or Cindy, any thoughts?
I mean, I'm also in the position of having a lot of my meeting time filled with other meetings, so the idea of adding something else is a little daunting. I like the office hours idea. I think that trying to do a standalone meeting at an IETF meeting, you'd need to figure out whether it's more like, here's what we're doing, and it's just you talking with no discussion, or are there actually topics that you could have a useful discussion about with a group of people that you don't know who's going to be there.
Thanks.
I appreciate being able to hear what's going on and to hear what you get from the others, because half of this I am not aware of, and so it keeps me in the loop. Of course, I only get to go to the North America meetings, so I don't have a lot of. But I would think that there's so many meetings on the agenda that if you had a meeting on the agenda, it might not get attended because there's other meetings people are going to.
Okay. Great. Well, that's super useful. So what I hear people saying is have these regularly scheduled meetings only during months where there isn't an IETF meeting, and then have office hours during IETF week as an unstructured way for people to learn about stuff, maybe have some conversation starting topics, but people can show up and talk about whatever they want to show up and talk about or ask questions about as well. So we'll try that at 119. People also ask what value I get from this. I think there are actually, I'm going to say 3, but I really have only 2 in mind at this point, but maybe a third one will come out as I'm talking through the other. I mean, the first is it does help organize this work in a way that is useful to me, because it helps keep things together in big chunks and sort of helps lift me out of the day-to-day work of getting things done. So it's always nice to have an excuse or a good reason to step back and take a bigger picture view. So that's great. The second point I would say is that I just thought of the third point. The second thing is that I think having this kind of transparency for the sake of transparency is good. So even if it's a small dedicated group of us, most of the times having the ability for people to keep track if they want to, or drop in if they want to, I think is a value in itself, not just for me, but for the community. So I think that's important. And of course, the third reason is because then it gives me an excuse to talk to all of you every month. So that's really nice.
Actually, I have a question. We had this comms review group with people from leadership, right? And I mean, if you think, for example, having more people from leadership in this meeting, we could also communicate this in that way.
I am happy to promote this conversation or this meeting more directly with the leadership, for sure. Yeah, I can do that.
I mean,
as well.
So I think the way we have this, like if we assign somebody a liaison to a certain group, the person usually shows up to the meeting as well, right? So
right.
If we do it on a more official way, and then you get also more input from leadership, if that is useful for you.
I would leave that decision about whether or not there's an official liaison to the individual leadership group. I would obviously welcome more participation by anybody in the IETF, but of course, particularly leadership, and happy to help make that happen based on what the leadership group wants to do. So,
I mean, I could imagine. I mean, like for IAB, I guess Drew is usually here anyway, or talking to you a lot, based on his position. For the IESG, I could actually imagine that any kind of updates about the webpage and what's going on there, also the blog post and whatever, is kind of useful information for them to have. So having somebody here, at least one person who can then feedback this information to the rest of the IESG, could make sense.
okay, that's a good point. I'm going to take that as a note. We're at the top of the hour, so I want to respect that. Thank you very much to everybody for making time to join. I find it really useful. We'll send out notes and links to the recording in the next week. So thanks.
Bye.
Take care all.
Bye, everyone.